What is going on, Crisis Actors? It is episode 1106 of Pop Culture Crisis. My name is Brett. I am here with my guest co-host for the day. Will you introduce yourself, please?
Hi, guys. It's good to be back. My name is Vara Dark. I run a YouTube channel called Vara Dark Dark Titan Media, where I cover entertainment. I'm a video game live streamer. I'm doing a lot these days.
Why don't you give everybody like an update on what's like been what you've been following and what you've been like reporting on lately?
Yeah, so I've been reporting a lot recently on the Halo campaign evolved situation. Also, Sony. I've been covering the death of physical media quite a lot and just streaming video games per usual. I'm going to be starting Beast of Reincarnation tonight.
What time are you going live tonight?
I am going live at 7 p.m. Eastern.
Perfect. I just had to, so the funniest thing was going on. So we have the crisis meter set up in such a way where it's on this Google Doc that's off the, it's off the screen. And before we went live, so we got logged out of Google. So I had to log back in so that I could see the chat, and I see you guys with the 20s. I will be reading them. And so what happens is if it gets logged out, it gives me like a screen at the bottom to log back in. So then I log back in on the Google Doc. I'm like, okay, we're good. But then I know that it's got to do it in OBS as well. And I'm like, oh, it's not going to happen until like right before we went live. And lo and behold, literally at 3 p.m., I don't know if that's on a timer or some shit, because it always seems to happen at that time. I had to like send it to Vera so that I could be like, go do this. I can like type this in and get this done. So we are off to a fantastic start. My brain power feels like, I feel like 110% today. Like I took the NZT from Limitless because I was able to do that without screwing it up. So we are off to a fantastic start here today, ladies and gentlemen. We have two $20 super chats here really quick. One from Clint Torres, long time no see, buddy, says, howdy people. And then he says, wave. And then of course a cowboy hat emoji with a I can't tell if that's just like a really weird smile or if that's a mustache, but I think it's just a really weird smile. Looks like a really weird smile. So thank you, Clint, for that. Also, from Katie, thank you so much, says, hello, Brett and Vera. I recently saw on the socialists in my part of the country's website, they hate capitalism, but they are selling merch and want donations. The lack of self-awareness is funny and crazy. No. That is not a lack of self-awareness. That is just plain evil from people that say one thing and do another. I point this out on IRL all the time. Accounts like Defiant L's are ostensibly useless because they like to catch people in these contradictions in terms where they say one thing and then they completely contradict themselves, like sometimes not even a day later. It doesn't matter. All that matters is the bullshit socialist communist revolution. They will lie, cheat, and steal to get what they want. They will obfuscate their objectives, their means, and their motives, and they do not care about any type of intellectual consistency because they're bad people.
Yep. Absolutely. Couldn't have said it better myself.
So it's funny. It's not a feature. It's a bug. It's not a bug. It's a feature for them in a lot of ways.
It is.
We have a lot of stuff to get into today, guys. Before we get started, as always, hit the like button on this episode and subscribe to the channel if you are new here and you've not subscribed here yet already. Please and thank you. Share the episode out with your friends, your family, your loved ones, people in your life that you like, and the ones that you don't like. If there's people in your life that you particularly disagree with and you fight a lot, send them this video and then argue with them in the comments section about it. It's great for us. It'll get it'll get that part of your brain going that you like. If you're one of those people that likes to argue on the internet, it doesn't matter what it's about. So it doesn't matter if it's about politics, if it's about David Zaslav not greenlighting Barbie 2. You can argue with them about it, and it helps us. So you should go ahead and do that. What are we getting into today? Well, that is actually one of the things we're going to talk about. So David Zaslav, whose pay package at Warner Brothers Discovery tripled last year, is not willing to greenlight Barbie 2, it looks like, because of the pay compensation that has been requested by the other actors and directors on this film. Now, it seems weird to me because if you're looking for a sure thing, this feels like a sure thing. You know, you got to spend money to make money, but it's a little bit more complicated than that. So we'll get into that today. We are also going to talk about whether or not superhero fatigue is real, because right now, I see a lot of posts from people in the space who are posting about Spider-Man being proof that superhero fatigue is in fact a myth, and it's actually just bad movie fatigue. I think this is also a more nuanced discussion than that, but we will talk about it because Spider-Man has set more records already. It just crossed $1 billion in like a hop. It did a hop, skip, and a jump all the way to $1 billion. It's grossed more like in its opening weekend previews than Supergirl did in its entire domestic run.
Oh, you love to see that happening.
So we will talk about that. We are also going to talk about Christopher Nolan being a snobby snob, as of course he is. He's British and he's a very famous film director. So he gave this interview with this political philosopher and interviewer in China, talking about whether they turned the Odyssey into a Christian movie. But that wasn't really the part that I wanted to talk about. Perhaps Mary would want to discuss something like that. I know a lot of people had that point, that they felt like it became less about Zeus's law and more about turning it into a Christian idea as a movie. But that's not the part that I found particularly interesting. He took some shots at amateur critics, and this gives us a chance to kind of look at that topic, because a lot of people have kind of taken my consistent pointing out that this movie is doing well as some type of tacit love of the movie. Well, you'd have to watch my review in which I said, meh, whatever. It's forgettable by Nolan standards. It's very forgettable, and I certainly would rather watch Oppenheimer if I had to choose them, and I'd pick Tenet over both of them. This allows us a chance to perhaps having a little bit more, it's a little bit more of an esoteric discussion. But you know what? A vast majority of the critics these days are amateur critics, thanks to social media. So it's something he has to contend with, even if he doesn't want to, even if he doesn't like it. So we're going to talk about his comments on critics. We're also going to talk about Spider-Man Brand New Day with spoilers, and I'm going to give this one again for the last topic. So I'm gonna, God willing, if I remember before we start topic number 3. So spoiler alert, skip ahead, or just, I don't want you to skip this episode, but if you're still waiting to see it, I am going to reveal some very important stuff that perhaps you have not seen yet. Jean Grey being in the movie. There you have it. Hope I didn't spoil it for you.
You give a spoiler alert and then instantly go into a spoiler.
Well, I said spoiler alert. That's the point.
I know.
I was like,
there are going to be people that are going to be like, Brett, you were supposed to do the spoilers later, not right now.
No, I said again. I said, God willing, I'll give it again before we get into the last topic. So you know what? They're going to say it in the comments, and we're going to ignore them. That's what we're going to do. Jean Grey being in the movie, there are a lot of people that have some real problems with her character arc and her characterization, and we're going to focus mostly on her character arc and her, I guess, the way her villainy is handled in this movie. So we will talk about that, because I think that's one of the most interesting discussions about it, and it proves that when a movie is really, really good, the total of the movie is more important than the parts, I think, in a lot of ways, because a lot of people have been willing to forgive this movie and really, really like it, despite the fact that they may have trouble with the portrayal of Jean Grey. So we'll get into that as well. So if you are ready, Vara, we can go. Are you ready?
Always.
All right. No spoilers on this one, guys, unless, of course, you haven't seen Barbie yet. In that case, there are maybe some spoilers in here. The number one spoiler, of course, being that we don't know if we're actually going to be getting a sequel to Barbie. Now, this movie has in a way, a weirdly complicated legacy, because I think that a lot of people have actually kind of, I guess, turned around on the film, if it were. They're softening in their perspective, maybe not even through rewatches, but it's one of those things where, for as much hate as the movie got, a lot of people were willing to admit that there were aspects of the movie that they liked. And let's face it, it made $1.4 billion at the box office. It got 8 Oscar nominations. So of course, Warner Brothers wants to make a sequel, but David Zaslav is just being a cheapskate right now, apparently, and they are rushing to finalize the rights for this right now, because if they don't, they will revert back to Mattel in December, of which case then they could probably go and have this movie made wherever they wanted. Mm-hmm. And weirdly enough, they should probably just bring it to Apple TV.
It is true, because it's like Barbie is an easy win for them. And so I know people have been talking a lot recently about, Barbie and why they haven't greenlit the sequel yet, and why it hasn't been confirmed. And I agree. I think that, it is a very complicated discussion, especially when you're talking about a lot of these big actors and the production budget that it would have. But I think it's obvious that they are going to go ahead with it.
Yeah. So they only locked in the stars for one movie because they wanted to get Greta Gerwig, and I guess that was the priority. But normally you would imagine with movies of this variety where it just screams sequel for them because it's based on famous IP, you would normally try to sign these actors up for more than one movie. Look at what happens to like every Marvel actor who signs up, gets one movie, and then sits around for like Kumail Nanjiani is still crying somewhere because they never made Eternals 2 Electric Boogaloo. But they have, it's not just Greta Gerwig, it's Margot Robbie, obviously, being the star of the movie, and Ryan Gosling. Only got them for one movie. Gosling was, I don't know if he was nominated for the Oscar, but I think the song he did.
It was the song.
The song
yes.
was nominated for an Oscar. And supposedly, according to this article, he wanted $20 million for Ken, of which I say get your bag, King, which means that Margot Robbie's going to command more.
Right.
Unless
she
this
probably
is like a Ken
wants
spin-off.
double, which is an insane amount of money. But again, look at the pull that this had. The production budget for Barbie was $145 million. We don't quite know what the marketing budget was. It had a very large marketing presence, though, but it made $1.45 billion. It made almost $1.5 billion. And so that's a lot of money.
And it got a lot of extra marketing from Barbenheimer, which was like the reason they were talking about why they thought the Odyssey might not do as well this year. Is they're like, well, the Odyssey was great, or like Oppenheimer was great, but it benefited from kind of being off the backs of the Barbie trend. There was all the photo. I love the one of like Oppenheimer
her sitting on like the shoulder.
I
that image is so amazing. I love it.
The stars also want profit participation for this movie, which means points on the back end, which means a percentage of all the money once it starts actually making money at the box office. And apparently Greta Gerwig and her husband, it's Noah Baumbach, have refused to even share. They haven't written a script, but they've refused to even share the outline that they have until this deal is done. And of course, Warner Brothers, the chairs over there, Pam Abdi and Mike DeLuca, have talked about this. They said, we have a rights deal with Mattel in place and have made a series of big offers to try and finalize deals to make the next Barbie film. Unfortunately, we've been unable to reach an agreement thus far. Over 3 years, the studio has made about half a dozen offers to them, including some of the biggest ever for a movie. The talents like this, they're all three of these people, or I guess four if you count Noah Baumbach, they're all represented by the same agency. They're all represented by CAA, and they've all declined all of these opportunities. And the hard thing is these are actors that have like they want for nothing. Like if they want to say no, they can walk away from any project because they're always going to be getting work. Right now, Margot Robbie is working on an Ocean's prequel. She's got Attack of the 50-Foot Woman, which I believe is like a Tim Burton thing. And then Ryan Gosling is going to be the guy who probably could save Star Wars if he's given the right script, which he's doing Starfighter, and then he's got Ghost Rider. So his dance. He's also doing some movie with the people that made Everything Everywhere All at Once, which they're being tight-lipped on the details. Whatever. The point is, he's got big budget movies coming out. She's got big projects coming out. They can just throw a number out there and be like, give me this or I'm not doing it.
Right. And plus, you also have to take into consideration that it's going to take so many years for Barbie to get made now that it's not officially greenlit, because all of these other films are going to take priority because he doesn't have a deal signed. So Barbie's not going to be able to come out for several years at this point. You would think that you would want the sequel to be as close to the first release as possible. But I also, again, going back to the budget, understand why they didn't want to sign them for multiple movies at once, because they weren't sure how well it was going to do. Though I personally, from the outside looking in, would have always anticipated them making multiple Barbie movies in a row, and you'd think you would want to keep that core cast.
Yeah, and Greta Gerwig, she's going to ruin Narnia over at Netflix.
Gosh, my heart. I can't.
It's getting a theater release though. This I forgot about. So it is going to theaters like February 12th. So it's going to get like IMAX screenings. Like you could just see the dude who runs Ted Sarandos or whatever his name is, just pissed. Like,
yeah, Sarandos.
We got to give it a. a theater release for
It's
this?
gonna be so bad. I have no excitement at all whatsoever. My excitement is in the negatives right now. I'm feeling depressed and like part of my life is being ruined. It's being ripped from me. It's going to be so awful. And especially when they're adding in modern music to it.
Well, it's rock and roll.
Oh,
That's what she said.
yeah.
She said it's rock and roll.
Oh, great. I can't wait to hear the Supergirl-esque songs that the covers are so awful. You can't understand what they're saying half the time. And then they butcher these very iconic, tracks.
So, okay, so better or worse, Narnia, better or worse than Rings of Power for you?
Oh my gosh, please. No, don't ask me that. I mean, Rings of Power's worse because Narnia was more of like a phase when I was younger. And Lord of the Rings, I have shelves and shelves of merchandise, but Narnia hurts. That's not okay.
Yeah. So the other thing that I think is funny about all this, so they're mad at David Zaslav, right? But at the same time, these people are like, because he won't greenlight this, right? Because he's cheap. That's what they're saying. He's cheap. But also they're mad because potentially he's selling them off to Paramount. Well, if it doesn't get sold off to Paramount, imagine this, because right now, they're in a holding pattern with the sale of Warner Brothers to Paramount, and people are unsure about whether it's still going through. If I had to put money on it, I still think it ends up going through. I can't say for sure. There was an article today from David Ellison basically saying, like, I'm just like you guys. I voted for both parties. And the reason they want to stop this from going through is because they want control of CNN, which is what my point has been from the beginning. But the film Twitter people, they're kind of like the useful idiots who either they're being politically disingenuous and they're pretending like it's not all because of CNN, or they're pretending as if it would be a good thing for this company to be sold for scrap after the fact rather than finding a way to keep it all together. But the point is that they're pissed at David Zaslav for trying to save money. They're pissed about the merger. But there is something funny about it when it comes to David Zaslav, because he is compensated very, very well because he did exactly what he came in to do when he took over at Warner Brothers Discovery, which was one of two things: either lean it out for sale or break up the two companies and make them separate entities. They went with sale. And his total pay package in 2025 tripled. He had a $3 million base salary with a cash bonus of $25.7 million and $132 million in combined stock and options, and a minimum of a $500 million golden parachute if the Paramount merger goes through.
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense why he would be cheap because, of course, he wants to make as much money as possible for himself. But also, Warner Brothers has, $30 billion worth of debt. And so he is trying his best to also balance that. I kind of feel similarly to the Xbox situation where, there was talks about Warner Brothers potentially being like split up or broken up. Xbox is the same way because Microsoft is sick of Xbox losing billions and billions of dollars.
How is that even possible when video games is such an enormous market?
Yeah. So in the past year, they've lost like $3 billion. And that is the question is in an industry when, we are talking about $200 billion being brought in. How do they lose money? Now, of course, some games are much more profitable, but the issue is that, they spent on Activision Blizzard $70 billion alone. Never mind the billions of dollars that they spent on Bethesda and the billions of dollars on top of other acquisitions. And so they are struggling a lot. That's why the leadership changed. But there was talk about Microsoft potentially splitting up Xbox and basically keeping the flagship studios and games like the Halos and the Gears of Wars, but selling off everything else. And really, if that happened, the only entity I could see that could have, even a portion of that money would be Amazon, because Amazon's gotten into games, or if Sony was able to get a chunk of that.
Does the video game industry work similar to film and television, or I guess more movies, where like a couple of really successful projects end up basically funding all the smaller ones?
Yes.
That's where, or it's just straight debt, where they just, it's all
it's basically just, you have a Call of Duty that makes tens of of it makes $1 billion in a couple of months, and then you have 10 smaller games that end up failing. But the issue, or I guess I shouldn't say the issue, but a big issue with Xbox right now is that smaller studios are getting an insane amount of money. So there was a game that came out recently called South of Midnight, and it was a very, I think the best way to describe it is an artsy fartsy game. It is a game that I could not imagine having over a $10 million budget. It had over 100 people that worked on it, and they got $100 million to make it. There is no way, shape, or form that game should cost $10 million. It's like a 5-hour experience, and it's like stop motion. It's just artsy fartsy. You can literally skip boss fights and turn off combat.
So is the point there, is that just money laundering? Like, that's what everybody's wondering with a lot of stuff. Is it money laundering? Yeah. Because that's what people feel like with movies these days. They're like, where's the money going? Like, it doesn't, it's not showing up in the movies. It's certainly not showing up in the television, wherever, in television shows where they're all monochromatic. There's barely any color to anything, and there's literally no shadows because everything's just blown out and or completely dark, right? Like, they don't have, like, it doesn't show up in the look of anything.
It's heartbreaking that this is happening, but with something like Xbox or an entity like Xbox, another issue is that they have this program called ID at Xbox, and it is to give money to minority-filled studios or projects that are supposed to promote diversity.
Wait, is it subsidized?
Yes. And so you end up having like smaller studios and these teams that get an insane amount of money because they're not giving it to just any developer that really asks. They're looking to give money to developers who push narratives, who fit their social quotas. And it's really disappointing that the gaming industries in the state, every large company is now doing this.
So, like, with all of this, with video games and movies, it really does feel like we've talked a long time about needing to get the budgets down. And to Barbie's credit, I think Barbie's budget was $100 million, which is pretty good by big blockbuster standards. Granted, it's not like it had like a ton of CGI, but I'm sure most of that's going to the actors and the and all of that stuff. I would love to see them be able to find a way to spend their money more efficiently. But the problem is all of these corporations have grown to be so unwieldy that it's almost, I've watched several documentaries about the making of GoldenEye, and it seemed like they basically made it in a barn. And it was like, it was by the seat of their pants. They had to master skill sets they didn't even have while they were making it. And we're past that age of like pioneer innovation of that sort, maverick innovation when it comes to the creation of movies and television shows, because they're not going to be willing to take those risks on specific films. They're going to play it as safe as possible, which is why you're getting Barbie sequels rather than new innovation. Because and this is kind of the point that I've been making. This summer is the best rebuttal example I can see where it's like it's all kind of funded by these big budget movies, because at the very least you've got Backrooms and Obsession, which have done very, very well. Backrooms is based off of something that people knew, but it was an internet phenomenon. It wasn't based off like a worldwide famous intellectual property. And Obsession, being the hit that it was very, very unique. You could add Project Hail Mary in there, even though it's based on a book series, but I think the budget for that movie makes it less of a success than those other projects. But those types of movies were funding the box office this summer, along with now The Odyssey, which is sold off Christopher Nolan's name, and of course Spider-Man, which is based off of Spider-Man's name and not because it's a comic book movie. So it actually is a good year for a mixture of budgets, or a mixture of types of movies making the box office successful, rather than just what we were talking about, which is everything being funded by a couple of big projects.
Right. Yeah. So.
All right. Speaking of we've talked about the movies. Let's talk about the slop going on at television shows, because Amazon is, I guess they hit a hiccup with God of War. Was this like a couple of weeks ago? And now we've got an announcement for new casting.
Yeah. So when it comes to this TV series. First of all, I don't really think anybody asked for it, or at least this version of God of War. But that's okay. That's okay. So Amazon had already cast Ryan Hurst as Kratos, and they had apparently, from what we understand, filmed several episodes. And then during production, he tore his bicep performing a stunt. And so the injury required surgery. Initially, they didn't say that they were going to replace him because I think they were hoping to like see how he was going to heal and progress. But his recovery is going to delay filming for months. So they are now going to be refilming, and they are going to be recasting, and we don't know who exactly is going to replace Ryan Hurst, but there are a few big names in Hollywood that they have been talking about, and one of those is Batista.
How do you feel about, okay, before we even get started, how do you feel about Batista as an actor?
I think that he is a good actor in the roles that he is generally cast in, but I cannot, at this point, it's become very hard for me to see anybody but Batista. And maybe that's just because there's been a Batista oversaturation. I kind of feel the same way about John Cena, but his acting is just very him being in the WWE. So that also doesn't really help.
John Cena is more of an actor than Batista is. At least
yeah,
in my
I guess
opinion.
for me, like I watch a lot of the comedies that he's in, and I'm watching like Peacemaker, which is more adult, but I still kind of feel like he's one note, I guess is maybe the best way to put it. But Batista, I feel is also kind of similar,
Yeah.
but in this role, I don't know if he'd be able to pull it off.
So I was looking at Batista's, because like I don't have like an extensive, I've seen a couple of movies that he's in. I've seen Knock at the Cabin. I've seen Glass Onion, and I sung his praises in those, that I thought he was like a good part of a very mediocre movie. And if I'm calling the movie mediocre right out of the theater, it must be mediocre, guys, because you guys know me. I'll just going to the theater is enough to give it a 7 out of 10. Like I'm IGN. When I go see a movie. But you know, going back to his early, and we'll leave out Drax because that's what I think most people know him as from.
Yeah, that's
Guardians.
what you think of,
Yeah.
like initially.
But like my first exposure to him as an actor, I believe, was Spectre. But that played into the strengths of him at the time because he was still jacked and enormous at that time, and he was basically just kind of following James Bond around trying to kill him, and he didn't really have a lot to do in that movie.
Yeah.
And he benefits from that type of role. Now, I'm sure there are some examples of movies that he's been really good in that maybe I haven't seen. I did not like The Wrecking Crew, which is a testament to how mediocre it was, because that movie's right up my alley.
Yeah. I'm surprised that you don't like that.
Streaming movies are a harder sell for me.
Yeah,
most of
okay.
the time. Like if you look at, if we went through like our movie reviews right now, almost any streaming movie gets a way lower score. Even the ones that I generally think are okay. Outside of what was the movie? The Killer, the one that was on Netflix a couple of years ago with Michael Fassbender. I really liked that movie. Other than that, pretty much all the streaming stuff that I've watched, the worst of the worst was Mother with Jennifer Lopez.
I think, by the way, the name of that is The Killer's Game.
Batista was in a movie called Killer's Game. There was a movie called The Killer with Michael Fassbender that I really
okay.
I'm just talking about general. My approach.
I thought you were talking
those.
about that one specifically.
That was one of those ones where like God must have not wanted me to see it, because I bought tickets for it 3 times and something came up every single time.
That's crazy.
And I had to like do the thing where you refund the ticket and it gives you store credit and then you come back. So it's like if you look at my history of sales at my movie theater, which is in like the, you know, like your window, that movie's in there 3 times because I had to buy it, put it back, buy it, put it back, buy it, put it back. But in general, streaming movies are a harder sell. So that one didn't really work for me. But Batista as a whole, what are the hallmarks of the character for that he'd be playing here? Like, what is it that he's gonna? First of all, he's gonna have to get bigger because he's shrunk as an actor.
Well, the thing that I want to say about that is I do agree Batista right now is a little smaller than he previously was, but the thing is that he's going to be filming Highlander, and he's the Kurgan, so he has to be buffed up a little bit more than he was like a half a year or a year ago, at least I would assume, for Highlander. So I think that because right now they had already been filming the God of War show, they probably just want to pick an actor and put them right into the role, even if that means paying the actor significantly more, because it's sort of like a last minute hire. I don't know off the top of my head what Batista is going to be doing, or like what his plans were, if he's got like a break in movies and shows that he planned to film, but I would assume he's got to be a little bit more buff now than he was like a year ago.
Yeah, I'm sure. And look, this is Hollywood. They can get him in shape in like 10 seconds. I did see some stuff about Reacher pushing back, saying that he's not a steroid guy. Yeah. All right. Alan Richardson, I don't know if I believe that. But when it comes
when it comes to Kratos, because I think, we just started yapping, but the hallmark traits of Kratos is, for the story that they're doing, which is the Norse era, it's like restraint, regret, like a deliberate effort to overcome his violent past. And so he's not going to quite be the rage-filled Kratos that I think everybody knows and loves from the original saga that we would love to see back. So that kind of is right up Batista's alley, at least with some of the projects that he's done, and especially with the way that he's acted.
Do you think that type of story will sell for them, or do you think that they should go with a more traditional storytelling?
I think if it was up to me, I would 100% go the more traditional route. And the thing with this is that they're just trying to tie it into the games and be like, look, you played the games, so watch the show. And so I understand why they're going with the Norse era, even though it's not my favorite era of Kratos and God of War by any stretch of the means. But that is clearly why they're doing it, because they want to try to get the people who bought copies of the game to show up to watch it, and for the people that are going to watch it to show up to buy the game. And it's actually kind of similar with Spider-Man, because in this Spider-Man movie, there were a lot of callbacks to the Insomniac games. Like in the first 5 minutes of the movie, the shot of his eye in the suit, that was a shot for shot of the original promotional material they got when they unveiled the Spider-Man Insomniac games back in 2017. And that swinging sequence is the start of that first Insomniac game as well. So, and there are also like a lot of finishers and moves in the movie that fans of the games go, whoa, look at that. That's so cool. And the game sales actually shot up because of the movie. And so both are trying to like teeter back and forth and get both audiences interested in it.
It's so funny. I didn't know it was a rewatch, but I rewatched Hitman Agent 47 the other night. And I love like that. I think the first Hitman game on PlayStation 2 was like the last like video game like that I bought on PlayStation before I kind of got away from. Like I said, I still play a lot of vintage video games. I got a new N64 for my birthday. Well, a new used N64 for my birthday, so that I could play actual cartridges rather than an emulator. But the point is, when it comes to video game movies, I give so much more leeway than television shows, because they use the television shows as an excuse to just start meandering.
Yes, because there's so much extra time that they have to fill, and so they have to add extra storylines and maybe new characters. It's like with House of the Dragon. They have done that so much in this show, because the book that they're basing it on, Fire and Blood, it's like 26 pages worth of content, but they need to turn it into 4 seasons with 8 to 10 hours of content.
I pointed out when I watched, I said, this movie is so forgettable that I didn't even realize it was a rewatch until I got halfway through. So it's got literally every flaw that we complain about. The villain is so boring and underdeveloped, it's almost scary. The plot is derivative. You literally hear the line, "You and I were not so different," which you can just check that one off on the screenwriting list. And there's a new character, and she's a woman, and she's the key to everything. It's like it was like a foreshadowing of everything that was going to hit the following year in 2016. And I still liked it because you know what? It was at least it didn't monopolize my time for 8 fucking hours. It was only like an hour and 40 minutes, filmed mostly in Berlin, or at least in Europe, so it wasn't bogged down by America. Like I like the fact that it was mostly like I like a lot of those movies that came out at that time. Like one of the Jack Ryan movies, the one with Chris Pine that came out at that time, took place mostly in Europe, and I enjoy a lot of those films.
Shadow Recruit.
Yes, I mean the movie was so forgettable. Again, another movie that continued the craze of trying to make Kenneth Branagh scary. He is not scary. He will never be scary. I don't care what anybody says. They tried it with Tenet. They're going to be trying it again with what was the other one that he was just announced as the villain of, that we were just talking about the other day? It's escaping me. But as usual, they're going to make Kenneth Branagh the villain, and he's not scary. He'll always be Gilderoy Lockhart for me.
Yeah, I mean, I completely agree.
I like him as Hercule Poirot, but nobody literally. I don't think anybody went and watched those movies either. Like we went to watch those movies and they were empty every time we'd go and see them. So how do you feel about Warhammer? Because there was more announcements on, like, it feels like Warhammer is one of those things where it's like there's a new announcement every 3 months, and then nothing ever happens.
It's funny because we were just talking about Highlander, we're talking about Henry Cavill, but my number one issue with this is that it is, again, it's Amazon.
Yep.
And so I want to have faith. I really do. But Amazon is grabbing up all of these different things, and Amazon's going to be giving us the God of War. Amazon's going to be giving us the Tomb Raider, which has already been kind of controversial. Amazon's given us Rings of Power, and sure, Amazon's made some good content as well. But at the same time, I like Warhammer. And I think, though, my issue with Warhammer is just that 40K, in my opinion, is like a very hard franchise to adapt. So we don't have a lot of details on really either of these projects we're getting for Warhammer. Basically just that Henry Cavill is going to be affiliated with both. He's going to be an actor in one, an executive producer in that one, in the live action. And then in the animated, he's going to be a producer. I believe that's just the general tag that they're giving him for it. But the universe is enormous. You're not adapting, one story like The Last of Us. You've got 10,000 years of history, hundreds of novels, dozens of major factions, lore that's been evolving since the 1980s. I don't know exactly what the story that they're going to go for is going to be. The visual side of things, it's going to need a lot of money because, Space Marines are 8 feet tall, genetically engineered super soldiers wearing armor that weighs as much as a car. It's going to be very easy for them to mess up. And that is my number one worry at this point. Henry Cavill, when he joins something, it's because he likes it. Highlander, he's talked so much about loving Highlander. The Witcher, he talked so much about loving The Witcher. Superman, loved Superman. And so that is the only reason I have a little bit of faith.
Did you like Fallout?
I liked some of it.
Okay. I just decided to I asked Grok for a list of Amazon originals. There are, look, the ones that I've watched, for the most part, I've liked, or at least the ones that there's some that I'm already noticing that aren't on here. But The Boys was very, at the very least, let's not even talk about whether we liked it or not. Was very successful, as it was. Reacher was, very successful. They've already approved the 5th season before the 4th season even comes out. Even as Alan Ritchson says stupid stuff all the time, and his most recent movie flops to hell. The Rings of Power, not successful, at least not in any way they're willing to admit.
Billions of dollars wasted on that.
The Terminal List and the Terminal List Dark Wolf, both things I really, really enjoyed. I liked Dark Wolf more than I liked the original Terminal List, and that's the more popular one, and that's got a sequel series coming out very, very soon. Citadel was one of the most boring things I've ever watched in my entire life. I didn't really care for Cross. I liked the early seasons of Jack Ryan. I really liked the early seasons of Bosch. There was a lot of stuff there that I quite enjoyed.
The only thing I'm going to disagree with you on is Citadel, but for me, I think it's because I love Richard Madden so much as an actor, and I think that he brings a lot to the screen and the experience. But yeah, I mean, I don't.
I
think
gave
it's
up
perfect.
real quickly. I think
thought
I
it was
gave up.
entertaining. I got through it. Would I rewatch it? No. So like, it definitely wasn't amazing.
I noticed because it's a Russo brothers production, right? So I noticed right away they do this thing. The Russo brothers love the 360 camera tilt where it starts and they basically turns like a clock, and that's like a hallmark of their production. And I think the thing that really turned me off is there was a point in the first, at least in the first half of the first episode, where first of all, Priyanka Chopra's character is super annoying. I don't care. I liked her a lot in Quantico. I thought she was great in Quantico. She's super annoying in the series. But also, there's an interstitial shot of them grabbing money out of a safe, and you can see the do not copy.
Yep.
And I was like, bro, was there nobody working second unit? Put a thumb over it, cover it.
It's so lazy.
It's so lazy.
Yes.
And that's the type of thing where, again, maybe in a theater, I look right past it because I've got my drunken fries and I'm in a good mood. But I'm sitting.
I have my nachos and my Slurpee.
Exactly.
I'm so happy to be here. Yeah, I get it.
That's literally me. To this day, I still think that's why I didn't like Wonka, because I didn't have my fries.
I would be pissed if I watched Wonka without snacks.
There you go.
I would give it a 0 out of 10.
The point being that those little things are enough to ruin something for me sometimes. It's temperamental. Christopher Nolan would hate me for that.
We get it. You're a woman. We understand.
Exactly. He's temperamental sometimes. So look, we'll have to wait and see how this shakes out for Amazon. But I guess it really depends on who you ask about their quality, right? Because if, like I said, those series that I liked, a lot of those were earlier ones. Like the Jack Ryan early seasons were a long time ago. So were the Bosch early seasons, long time ago.
Right. Creative teams change, company mentality changes, their plans change over time. And I mean, even if you're going back 5 years in content, 5 years is a lot of time for these studios.
Might as well be a lifetime in a lot of ways for them. So all right, we'll have to wait and see, guys, but I still think that if you're talking about the best bang for your buck when it comes to streaming services, Amazon Prime decimates all the competition when it comes to just having an endless supply of old stuff to watch. Literally new stuff is added constantly over there.
Well, plus the Prime subscription, you also get access to Amazon Prime, not just the streaming service.
And I pay the extra whatever, like $3 or $5 so that I don't have ads, because fuck that. I'm not watching ads. I'm not doing that.
Come on, don't you want to waste 5 minutes of your day and an hour worth of content watching ads, Brett?
Well, actually, I've got rules when it comes to this. So if it is a new TV show, I will not watch it with ads. If it's a new movie, I will not watch it with ads. If it's an old movie that I do as like a bonus review for this, I will grit my teeth and watch it with ads. And I will watch old TV shows with ads because it feels like I'm going back in time, because it was like on at a time when you had to watch it.
Nostalgia.
Yeah. I wish they actually dropped the ads where the ad breaks were in the shows, but they never do that.
That would be absolutely great. Hey, they keep talking about implementing AI. Maybe AI could figure out where those cuts are and then actually put the ad there.
Well, and shows back in the day used to they didn't people take for granted just how much they've mastered the television format now. You know what you don't see a lot of these days on a TV show, if you watch network TV? You don't see a lot of fade to black into commercials.
Yeah, you don't.
It usually ends on some type of story beat that launches you into the commercials. But if you watch old X-Files episodes, sometimes that shit just fades to black.
It does. And so good.
I love it.
I do too.
All right, cue to the day, ladies and gentlemen here. This one is from 5 Foot Freedom. Are you 5 feet? Is the cat 5 feet? It says, I'm not here to brag, but orange females are some of the more temperamental. Please see Aurora as an example. This does not look like a temperamental cat.
She's just chilling. She's just hanging out.
She looks very chill right there.
She could be plotting your demise, though. So
that is also very, very true.
That is a very human pose.
Yes.
Be careful. Sleep with one eye open. Motion sensor at your door.
Wait, what's this? What's the joke? It's like the chances of your yellow cat or of your orange cat killing you are small, but never
slim. Yeah, but never none.
Never none. All right, guys, submit your pets to me on X, please. Don't like send a message because I don't always see those, but send like an actual post, tag me in it at Brett Dasovic, and use the hashtag PCCPets. And if you submitted with my most recent request, I will be getting through all those. But if you didn't submit to my most recent post asking you for pictures of your pets, then you can do so on there and use the hashtag PCCPets. I still use the hashtag because to me they're still real. All right, let's get started then. So over the weekend, Spider-Man shocked pretty much nobody and made a crap ton of money at the box office. In fact, one of the things that I've held strong on since the beginning is I still think that there's a possibility. Now, maybe I'm 110% wrong about this. I'm happy to be proven wrong. I still think there's a possibility that Spider-Man Brand New Day is more successful than Avengers Doomsday because it has way more goodwill with the character going in than what Marvel has with Cameo, the movie. Now, maybe I'm wrong. Fine, but this is the second fastest movie behind the previous Avengers movie to hit $1 billion. The Thursday night previews alone outgrossed Supergirl's entire domestic box office run, and it just had the biggest Monday ever with $47 million. So I guess I have to ask this question of you, Vera. Is superhero fatigue real?
No, it is not. It is bad movie fatigue or bad superhero movie fatigue. Yeah.
I disagree. I do believe that just like other genres go through phases, I think that you don't base whether there's fatigue on a genre based on the most established IP. You base it on the ones that people don't know about. My general idea is this, and again, this is just my personal opinion, that when Marvel was hitting on all cylinders, when superhero movies were a not new concept, but a novel concept because of interconnected universes, many movies that perhaps would have done okay at the box office did really, really well at the box office in an era where people are more weary of a film. I don't know if Guardians of the Galaxy ends up being as successful as it is until that first movie ends up proving people wrong. Perhaps then it does. But I do think that Captain Marvel, for instance, doesn't make $1 billion if it isn't off the backs of more successful franchises. And I think that the fatigue is when the lesser known properties aren't automatically elevated by the hype around them from the successful ones. Now, Spider-Man is omnipresent. As I always say, Spider-Man is the most popular comic book character of all time. I don't think that that is in question. A lot of people believe that in a lot of ways that he'd be tied with Batman. I think that Spider-Man has proven in the last couple of years, especially, that while Batman may be, keeping the comic book industry alive in a lot of ways, Spider-Man has more outsized influence on all of the culture. You can basically rate that in Spider-Man pajamas. Kids today still wear Spider-Man pajamas. When you go out in public, you see a lot more Spider-Man merch than perhaps other characters. Now, Spider-Man may be an exception. Batman may be an exception. The Avengers, we'll have to wait and see if Cameo the movie is also an exception. But I still believe that movies have gone, genres have gone through phases, right? You had the Westerns and the musicals in the 30s and the 60s. You had disaster films, which was the 70s, and then had a huge resurgence in the 90s because of CGI and miniatures, film noir in the 40s and the 50s. And what happens, or what tends to happen, and I think Razor Fist made a video on this back in the day, is once you get into the deconstruction phase of the characters, where you have to start deconstructing these characters, the public starts to generally lose interest. Now, maybe this is just all my personal opinion, but if you look at the last 10 superhero movies domestic box office, those numbers are high for the first 5 or first 4 or 5, and then they start to hollow out. So Deadpool and Wolverine did $636 million at the domestic box office. Deadpool, I would also perhaps add to that, that era there where Deadpool is now so popular and tied to Ryan Reynolds in popular culture that maybe he is also one of those exceptions. Spider-Man Brand New Day is already at 360 million, which has put it above even the next entry down there, which is Superman, which made last year's Superman, which did 354 million at the box office. Fantastic Four, 274. Captain America, Brave New World, $200 million. These movies are being made with budgets much higher than they're making at the domestic box office. So I don't know if necessarily it's good movie fatigue or bad movie fatigue, because I saw plenty of people that liked those movies more than I did. Definitely with Superman, there was a lot of people who claimed to love that movie. But what's the difference between the claim of love for a James Gunn superhero movie and Spider-Man? Well, Spider-Man is actually has actual universal appeal.
Yeah, so, for me personally, I do believe that it is just bad or mediocre superhero movie fatigue. We've seen a lot of successes like Spider-Man No Way Home brought in right under $200 billion. Multiverse of Madness, I wasn't the biggest fan of, but that still brought in $955 million.
That was one of those ones that tanked, though, like after its opening weekend.
Yeah,
like
after its opening weekend.
Movie should have...
It was very heavy on the front end.
That movie should... and that's the other thing about most of these, they tend to be very front-loaded, which is like...
Yes.
The reason why I predicted 800 to $1 billion on the Odyssey is that Christopher Nolan movies generally aren't front-loaded. The Nolan bros go, and then they go again, and they go again, and they go again, and people buy out their tickets weeks in advance so they can go see that shit in IMAX or whatever. You look at the other ones, Thunderbolts. I still remember a time last year when people said that Thunderbolts was gonna save Marvel, and I said, nobody knows who these characters are. Nobody gives a shit. Okay.
But look at also like the Batman. The Batman brought in $772 million. There's no...
more.
Yeah, it should have made more, but you have like Deadpool.
I don't mean that on quality. I'm saying Batman should have made more than that. Like just like Batman versus Superman should have made more than that.
I get. Yeah, I mean,
that's a quality issue, though. To be fair,
yeah,
for a lot of people.
People also were. Now I think that people have given it more of a chance, where at first people were very skeptical because it was Robert Pattinson, and you ended up getting into like, oh, haha, we just remember him from Twilight. Whereas now he's done so many movies since the Batman. I think that the general consensus on him has changed. But ultimately, these are still movies that did make a lot of money. But if you compare that to movies that struggled, you have Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania. It was a bad movie. The Marvels. It was a bad movie, which, by the way, I'll never forgive you for making me go and watch that in theaters.
Vara will be throwing darts, darts at pictures of me and Mary for a lifetime because of that. Okay, so then I guess my point is there. The Marvels is one thing. Captain Marvel is another. They're technically, they're not the same character, but they are because both of them have Cara Danvers in it. I think that in the peak of superhero fandom or comic book movie success, you can get Captain Marvel to $1 billion. I don't think that if they re-released Captain Marvel after Phase 3 and they try to do that movie again, I don't think it makes $1 billion.
Yeah.
And I think that's because of fatigue around the genre.
I think that it's just... I think the reason why Captain Marvel did so good is because people were willing to give it a chance, and it just didn't pan out well. But, Quantumania, Marvel's, Captain America, Brave New World, or these other entries that received, weaker audience reception or mixed word of mouth, those didn't flop just because these characters had capes. They struggled because audiences didn't think they were must-see movies. We've seen this happen in other genres too. Nobody says that there's musical fatigue because one musical bombs. Or
actually, I was going to use that as like an example. My point was more like Wicked did well, but the sequel didn't do nearly as well. But it is actually funny these days with the musicals because I think everybody knew that like the Mean Girls musical was a bad idea. Like.
I still think that there would be an audience for it, though.
And there are musicals that do well, but they tend to be more... I mean, it's considered more of a niche product than the superhero movies, which are supposed to bring everybody in.
I also think that for me personally, and this is just, what I have seen over the years, but superhero films have now been around for a long time. They have dominated Hollywood, and they hold all of the top records in these top spots. but I don't see them going away anytime soon. But I also don't see these types of movies not making a lot of money going forward just because people are quote unquote fatigued by them. I always think that there are going to be, if the movie looks good, if it looks different, if there's a reason to see it in theaters, people will show up. I think that it is based on the character, and also, you know, a big part of it are the narratives that are being pushed and how the actors also act before something ends up coming out. You know,
you think that affects box office?
Like which part, like the actors, how they act on like the red carpet or in interviews?
Yeah, do you think that to an extremely noticeable extent, do you think that affects box office?
I think that it can, yes. Does it every single time? No. I think that it depends on the audience, because if we're talking about, you know, if let's say Margot Robbie says something a little bit controversial, Barbie 2 is still going to sell well. But if people are already sort of teetering on the edge of if they want to see it or don't want to see it, and then a Brie Larson or a Rachel Zegler says something controversial, that is going to push people away. So it really depends on what the reception is to the actual trailers and the teasers and the content that we're seeing. But, you know, with the superhero fatigue, I think people are just tired of studios treating blockbuster movies like they are political lectures. That is a big part of it as well. For years, Hollywood has acted like audiences should show up because a movie checks the right cultural boxes instead of because it's entertaining. And then when a movie underperforms, the first explanation is, oh, superhero fatigue, or the audiences are somehow the problem.
No, they're
instead
still
of
blaming
asking,
COVID sometimes.
Sometimes they are, that's true, but they're asking or presenting all of these things instead of actually questioning whether the movie was fun or well written, or people are interested in seeing this character on the screen again.
This tweet said, comic book movie fatigue is when you don't go to the theaters for a small character and when a woman is the lead. Okay, got it.
I mean, there have been plenty of movies, or superhero movies specifically, that have had female leads that have done really, really good. Sure, recently we haven't seen any like Wonder Womans come out where they have absolutely dominated.
She was born for that. As bad as that second movie was, she was born to play that character as a second. As good as much as I like the first Wonder Woman, and as bad as 1984 was, I recently put myself through the pain of rewatching Justice League. And what I realized is she was born to play that character so that she could elevate the characters around her, because she brings a warmth and a kindness to that character that's supposed to run contrary to other aspects of the story. So she elevates Bruce Wayne, who's being brutish because he's Bruce Wayne, and that's his job. His job is to be brutish and then to be Batman. And she elevates Cyborg by having a caring nature, and much harder for and even in the first movie, it's really about her relationship with Steve Trevor. And a lot of it's the fish out of water story, but there's a very human aspect to that I feel like they would promote but not understand. Meaning they could write a completely different script that captures none of that and still use the same talking points about her humanity is what people love about her, without realizing that it's more than just that.
Kal-El, no.
Yeah, well, you know, there's no accounting for her dialogue delivery in a lot of
Max Lord, give me this stone. Yeah.
She's because I tried to watch, she did a movie for Netflix in like 2022. I forget what it was called. It was so bad. It's like Heart of Stone or something like that.
Yes, and I do remember that movie.
I made a point to somebody where there's a scene where she like gets up out of a pool and smiles at someone. I'm like, if that was the whole movie, that's all they should do, because the rest of it is so bad. She wins people over just by smiling. She's the only person in history that could survive that Imagine rendition that she did. She really is.
Yeah, she is.
I also think that you're right. And another thing is that actors want to be pop stars, because pop stars are the ones who benefit from overt political statements, and because the target demographic of people that buy and listen to pop music are stan culture weirdos who want to talk about, you know, democratic socialism and
yes,
and
our
change
favorite topic.
and
Exactly
like
what
that.
I want to hear. about from a millionaire. I love the fact that they're bashing me over the head with their, political opinions and how they feel.
How do you think? Okay, so I guess my general thesis was like, if superhero fatigue wasn't real, more of the Sony Spider-Man movies would have done better. Like Venom, fine. Venom did good. The first one did good.
But I think Venom's the only name that people knew. Who knows the name Madam Web?
Yes.
Craven, I think some people know the name Craven. Also, the actor Aaron...
Taylor Johnson.
Taylor Johnson, yes, that's it. He is a decently known name, but ultimately, who knows Madam Web?
Yeah.
And the people that might know these actors, they're really not going to show up. Like 50 Shades of Grey. Mm-hmm. That is a female-heavy audience, and you throw a bunch of these females in these lead positions, which are notable in Hollywood, like Sydney Sweeney, and also Dakota Johnson. But are they going to show up to watch Madam Web? No.
No, nobody who's going to see Devil Wears Prada or whatever shit. I don't even know what Dakota Johnson does, but I'm a Dakota Johnson defender here. I like that she's completely disconnected from reality and hoity-toity, much like we are Gwyneth Paltrow defenders here. Completely okay with that. They're not pretending to be.
Do you remember a few years ago during COVID, the Vanessa Hudgens "some people are gonna die" quote?
Yes.
She was so detached.
I love it.
It's the same energy, I feel, because they really don't give a lot of like interviews or talk to the press. They are very, very in their own bubble and in their own heads.
Yeah. Do you think that there's going to be a time?
We live in an age
do you think we're going to get to a time where there's a high again, like Marvel in the first, not even the first phase, because it really wasn't phase 1 that was the biggest success. It's really phase 3 Marvel that people pine for, at least in my estimation. They love those earlier movies.
People were fine with the lead up, but
yes.
it peaked in phase 3. Yeah.
Is there do you see a future where you get that perhaps in video games with any type of like generational run with video game movies or TV shows, I should say?
So if we got adaptations, if I think it's going to hit that level of like stride and success, I think that it really depends on what they greenlight and how they do it. Because like Tomb Raider should be a big, fat, easy W. But when Phoebe Waller-Bridge is a part of it, and they've talked about the boob debate, and oh my gosh, we need to make sure we're hiring an actress who doesn't have a large chest because that's unrealistic for a Tomb Raider, that's a problem. These people, feminists cannot be hired to work on these projects because you need the men to show up. The reason why the Tomb Raiders and the God of Wars and the Halos, oh my God, that Halo show was so bad, was successful is because the games were made for men. They understood their audience. And then women like me, who also like the Master Chiefs and the Kratoses and the Lara Crofts, I like them for what they were, not what they could become. And so if we continue to see these activists push whatever they want into these stories and onto these characters, I think that they could be successful, but you need to have the right creative teams behind them and understand and respect your audience. Yeah. But even look at the video games. One of the next Tomb Raider games, Catalyst, it's been leaked. Lara Croft's going to have a girlfriend, or she had a female love at one point, yeah. Right? And that's going to be a conflict with her character now. Is that really what the men want to see? We're not talking about a 20-year-old Lara Croft who's in a low-cut top kissing her girlfriend and really is there to appeal to men. We're talking about a 50-year-old Lara Croft talking about her ex-girlfriend.
That's almost the more insidious type about it, when they insert it into the backstory, which is just take that, you chuds. You like to buy woman all along or something like that.
Yeah.
When they try and rewrite history. I made this point the other day because even me, who is the most forgiving of race swaps, had a point to make when we were talking about the Thomas Crown Affair reboot that Michael B. Jordan is doing, where I said, like, if you turn the repatriation of goods into part of his character backstory, it destroys who his character was in the movie, because the whole point of it is that he was kind of just a rich man who wanted for nothing, so he stole because he was bored, which I find to be, at least, if not interesting, at least novel and a fun concept to approach. But you're fundamentally changing the nature of the character, and when it becomes about giving goods, giving artifacts back to a culture that was oppressed by another culture, that immediately makes his race part of the story and ends up making it less interesting. And and like me, who's always has to get crap on here for forgiving race swaps. I'm like, as long as they don't talk about it, I guess I don't care. It's like literally the one version of it that I tell them that I won't accept is like if you actually change the backstory to do it, and they can't even stop themselves from doing that. And I don't think that movie's gonna make the, if it makes the money that they want it to make, it's gonna be because Michael B. Jordan is a star, not because their script idea was anything novel, because that's the same discussion, like you were saying, that they've turned into an aspect of Lara Croft's character, which is like, ooh, being a Tomb Raider is problematic.
Right. Being in Tomb Raider is problematic. There was a TTRPG that was supposed to come out a couple of years ago where a basically merry band of young misfits gave back Lara Croft's artifacts that she took and that her father had obtained. They actually canceled that because it went over so poorly with audiences. It wasn't going to be a video game. It was going to be like a tabletop game. So they also didn't have as, many stakes in that, and they weren't like riding on that to make them a lot of money. But yeah, I think that you need to understand and respect your target audience if you want something like that to work. And I also am of the opinion that race swaps can occasionally work as long as you are not changing the backstory of the character and this actor can embody the character. Like Jeffrey Wright in The Batman. I thought that he did a good job as Gordon. I didn't mind it. But when you start changing that backstory, it becomes a problem. And I never think that gender swaps work. Never have they ever, because you have to, in essence, change the character's backstory and who they are and their place in a story.
It also depends on how connected you are to the source material, which is why I always admit this. I'm like, look, a lot of the times there's so many of them that I've liked, but it's because I didn't have like a deep connection to the source material. I love the 2012 show Elementary, with Johnny Lee Miller and Lucy Liu. And I don't care that Lucy Liu is not John Watson. She has to be Asian Joan Watson, the female. And I didn't care because I like that show. I like the BBC Sherlock with Benedict Cumberbatch and Martin Freeman too. But I like them for different reasons. But again, that's coming from somebody who doesn't have like a deep connection to the Arthur Conan Doyle books or anything like that. So you can I understand where they're coming from and why they're annoyed, but that's the whole point. These studios aren't making it for the ones who are diehard fans because
they're making it for normies. They're making it for average audiences, and they are hoping that enough of that new audience is going to show up so they can get away with it, and it can become normalized that, we're just going to race swap or gender swap characters, and then they always are going to push the limits, and that's the number one issue. When you give them an inch, they'll take a mile. You might say, this race swap was fine. Well, then it turns into a gender swap. Then it turns into a complete backstory change. And then everything is just a political lecture, which is a major problem.
Over on Rumble, they're mentioning Nick Fury. Yes, Nick Fury is a good example, not just because of it being an example of a race swap that works, but I always give the example that it works, or you get more leeway when you pick an actor that everybody knows. Will Smith as Deadshot gets leeway because it's Will Smith. At the very least,
people will show up to support Will Smith. People will show up to support Samuel L. Jackson. People will show up to support these actors because they know who they are and they think, oh my gosh, I love all of your other content, so hell yeah.
At the very least, I would imagine even the most cynical person can at least put themselves in the shoes of the producer and say, well, it's a race swap, but it's this actor that's going to bring a bunch of eyeballs to our work, so they can at least give it some leeway. When you pick actor, Joe Schmo 32 Electric Boogaloo that nobody knows and doesn't give a command performance, that's when people have questions.
Yeah.
Now that we are being, I guess, amateur film critics, which is what we are doing right now, we are being amateur film critics. We're going to be amateur film critics later when we get into spoilers about Spider-Man Brand New Day. Let's listen to what I almost said Steven Spielberg, what Christopher Nolan has to say about his frustrations with amateur film criticism. I guess in a lot of ways it's funny because I've been getting a ton of flack here because I keep pointing out that The Odyssey is successful. That is not me endorsing this movie as a fantastic film. I think it was unbelievably mediocre for the most part. It was fine, but I also think that there's a just weapons grade level of cope going on. It's over $900 million at the box office. It's going to clear $1 billion at the box office very easily. It's probably going to go towards 1.4 or 1.5 billion. It's secured more IMAX screens all the way up through September. It is a success in all of those metrics. Nothing to do with the culture war. All of that is a separate discussion, and that's fine. We're going to talk about that a little bit here. But Christopher Nolan sat down and he did this interview that I thought was very interesting. He did it with this Chinese podcaster and political philosophy lecturer named Zhang Shu. This was in Beijing, and this first appeared on like a Chinese channel. And this seems to be like his first long form sit down where it felt like the interview was actually trying to press him on some stuff and wasn't just saying, "Oh, Christopher Nolan, you're so great. We love you. We think you're fantastic." There is some of that in here, but let's listen to this part that he gets into about amateur film criticism. And, you guys watching, just let us know in the comments what you think about what he's saying here, and then we'll discuss it. So here we go.
The world that he lives in and the world that in some sense he feels he's damaged.
We live in an age that demands apology from greatness.
Yeah.
Great storytellers, when they portray greatness, Homer celebrates it. We circle around it. We dance around it. We turn greatness into privileges, and we demand apologies for it. That's a fact of Hollywood. And I'm just wondering if, as one of the greatest storytellers of our age, how do you approach great?
She was kissing his butt there a little bit, but that's just me.
Is it still a story of apology and that demands repentance and reflection and self-criticism?
Well, I think that when you're talking about storytelling, you're always in conversation with the expectations of the audience. So it really is an energy that's brought from the audience as well as an energy that's put forward from the story itself. Yeah. So when you're characterizing somebody, and the trite version of this, or the criticisms often leveled at movies in general is, oh, the character has to be made sympathetic, so the character is manipulated in different ways or changed in different ways. And that's a fundamental flaw of film criticism in a way, or storytelling criticism, because to be able to identify the mechanism does not invalidate the mechanism. And that's a real problem in criticism today, because people have this idea that because I can understand why the story affects me the way it is, therefore it didn't work. That's not how storytelling works. So when we create a heroic figure in a story, as storytellers, we have to be mindful of the energy that the audience brings to that story and the interaction between our intention and the way the audience receives that. And the fact that that mechanism is identifiable to people doesn't invalidate it. And part of that mechanism is saying, are we going to treat greatness as an absolute, or coming from a democratic, coming from a more idealized philosophical state that we live in today's world, where we want to view people as equal? Do we have to apologize for that greatness? And the answer is yes, we do, or the audience rejects the greatness.
So do you agree with that? Do we have to apologize for greatness for the audience to accept it?
No, I do not think that.
Neither do I. I wasn't shocked because when he canceled his he didn't do any like influencer screenings, which, to be fair, like, I imagine he's just like, I'm not doing that. But like, it's just, all he did was reiterate the idea of the modern audience.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I think for me, what's so hilarious about this is, like, Joseph Campbell would eat Nolan alive if they were able to sit down and have a conversation today. But a problem I have with this interview, or like this clip, and I think that it's a fascinating quote that people will probably use in the future, but she says, like, greatness is a privilege, and then she's asking Nolan how he approaches greatness because he's one of the greatest storytellers of our time, which, first of all, is definitely giving him a little bit of maybe too much praise. I think that his movies are accessible for a normal audience or an average audience.
He is a gateway to becoming a letterboxed American or an A24 bro. He's the one that you know, like the myth of the drug dealer who sits out in the park and gives you a free sample. That's what Christopher Nolan is. He sends you on your way to being a Twitter film snob.
Right, but you know, she asks how he approaches greatness, which is really asking him how he deals with his privilege. And then he goes on about like, yes, we do need to address that, or the audience rejects that greatness, aka the content, which is, I feel it's an insane thing to say. Now, I do like the fact that this isn't a, hey, what's your favorite movie, Christopher Nolan interview, where it's just the same conversation and questions over and over. But at the same time, I think that his answer was also very questionable.
So he called the audience's ability to recognize a certain aspect of the storytelling mechanism, he called it trite. And I think he's a bit dismissive over just how the general audiences may respond to those aspects of filmmaking. So the thing is, maybe he's exempt from this because he's Christopher Nolan and he's got this large built-in fan base of people that are going to support his work no matter what. But the thing is, all the other filmmakers who don't have that level of credibility with the general public, they don't have that benefit. So if the average person looks at an aspect of your storytelling and finds it immediately recognizable and find that it affects their enjoyment of the movie, a couple of things could be true. On one hand, yes, they could be potentially overthinking it, and maybe they're just looking at it with too critical of an eye. Or you could look at it the way that I think we'll talk about the next discussion we're going to have about the villain from Spider-Man Brand New Day, which is that when the movie is made really, really well and it wraps an audience in the story, individual elements are more easily forgiven because it's not about individual parts. It's about the sum of the whole. It's about how the entire thing is put together. Now, one of the things that I found interesting that people were like trying to like cope about and make fun of the movie for was like the 5 foot tall woman who was hired to be Matt Damon's like stunt double, because the point was to put her next to the 7 foot tall men so that they actually look like giants. It's like, so he took practical storytelling elements, right? And then he did basically what they talk about with Lord of the Rings, right? They use camera techniques and stuff to make that work. The problem is these people, you've already taken these people out of the story based on choices you made before the movie was even done, right? So you get into whether you want to talk about the race swaps, it's all part of the filmmaking process. It's not just about the script. It's about all of these other things. And there's a certain percentage of the population who are not going to forgive you for that. If this was a movie more in the lines of a Spider-Man Brand New Day, people would have saw that and been like, oh my God, that's so cool.
Yeah.
But they're not going to give it leeway because they're not happy with that aspect. And to be fair, that's not the general audience consensus on this because the movie is being successful. I just think that he's very like calling it trite is to pretend
the problem is he's attacking people's intelligence.
Yes.
And he doesn't care really what you have to say. He just cares about what he thinks and his opinion and his viewpoint. And his viewpoint is you're all stupid. Like,
I do think that a director has to be that egotistical most of the time to get the job done. I think that being a director... I
think they need to be confident, yes, but I don't think that confidence needs to end up being dismissiveness and disrespect for your audience. I think that there is a very fine line of like almost being cocky while you're behind the camera and you're filming and you are directing, but you also need to understand your paying customers' viewpoint. And as we know, because this has been happening for well over a decade, if you go and say your audience isn't intelligent, well, people are going to then reject you and be upset with you.
And feigning some humility goes a long way. Like I make the joke all the time when Tom Cruise says, oh, I'm so thankful for you guys for coming to the movies. We do this for you. I'm like, I don't know if he actually believes that, but I'm willing to be lied to because I like the movies that he makes, right? So
right. It's like actors actually acting like they care. With Rachel Zegler on Snow White, I think that's a perfect example. Everyone was like, well, why doesn't she act like she cares about Snow White and act like she cares about this story? But instead, she decided to go mask off, and people destroyed her for it.
Also, the other thing that he it's not the point he's making here, but if we're talking about mechanisms that are part of the filmmaking process that are popular today, one of the ones that could also be inferred here is the idea of subverting expectations, which is something Hollywood talks about all the time and is not on its own a bad thing. It's just that the only type of subversion they really seem to care about has to do with the race and gender of characters and pushing white dudes down the ladder when it comes to their storytelling elements. There are great examples in movies and television shows of subverting expectations in a good way. I've been watching this like 3.5-hour retrospective on the Scream franchise, and they point out that Drew Barrymore being hired to be in Scream 1 and put in all the promotional material as basically what people thought was going to be the star of the movie, which, spoiler alert for a movie made in 1996, she doesn't survive the opening scene. That was subversion of the expectations because of the power of Drew Barrymore's star, of her level of stardom, as well as the fact that it happens right away, subverts expectations. Great. Also in the same movie, and that's subverting the audience expectations. In the same movie, they subvert genre expectations when they have the whole discussion about when you have sex in a horror movie, you die. Well, Sydney doesn't die. So that's an actual artist's approach to subverting expectations, but that's also a mechanism of the film process, and to not expect normal people to be able to understand that is a bit silly. They do.
Yeah, absolutely. Just because, I always think that people like Christopher Nolan I think that they're good filmmakers, and I think that he, to a certain extent, has to understand his audience. But yeah, this general level of contempt is wild.
It also feels like there is a general belief in Hollywood, and I understand where the impetus comes from, even if I don't think it's a winning strategy, that the audience doesn't know what they want. We tell the audience what they want. And that is a product of needing to have the confidence to literally create something from scratch and bring it to life and then put it out there. Not understanding most of the time that these days it's all based off somebody else's creation anyways. So they have all the confidence.
Nothing is wholly original at this point. Everything is inspired by something else, which I don't think is a bad thing. I think that is just a fact of life. But yeah.
And in most of the stuff, it's based off a book. Like even the movies you watch these days, most of the time that are original, it's based off some obscure. Like we went and saw The Sheep Detectives, and it was great. It was my favorite movie this year so far, and it was based off a freaking like a detective book. Like an actual book series that's apparently a lot more serious and adult themed than the movie that they made. But that was an interesting example because the book series, from everything that I read in my research, was like the shepherd was actually like a drug smuggler, and it was like a very adult themed movie. But the movie they released was one that was good for all ages, families, and kids.
I was gonna say, I haven't personally seen it. I've heard good things about it, but yeah, it sounds like the tone shifted a lot.
But they had to, whoever made that movie, and I forget who it was. I think it was one of these like lifelong animated film guys. Might have been DreamWorks or Illuminations. But the point is, somebody along the way had to have the hubris and the confidence to say, this is what it started as. This is what we're going to turn it into. The problem is sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't work. And when it doesn't work, more often than not, you know, the audience is like, why would you change something that was so easy to do? Why would you change Tomb Raider? It's literally simple. Like, find a girl.
They believe that it's going to reach a new audience, but by chasing a new audience, you're going to lose your existing one.
Wrestling is going through that right now too. They're apparently just like they've just priced out any normal person. They can't afford it, so they're under this impression that they're going to just make this new audience appear out of nowhere.
Right. Suddenly, you know, the millionaires are all going to be lining up to support their events every week. Yeah.
Did you see The Odyssey? I don't know if I don't remember.
I did. Yes.
What are your thoughts on it?
I thought that there were a lot of really good on-screen moments. There were a lot of very big set pieces I liked. I liked the way that it was filmed. I liked quite a few of the performances that were in it. There were some changes I was not a fan of, like not actually having the gods in it, not having Hermes in it is a massive issue because of how influential Hermes is on the story. But I did not hate the movie. I just felt that it was almost painfully mid, and what really brings it down is the feminism. Every woman is a victim, every woman is wronged, and even the women who should be more so antagonists are just hanging out with Odysseus or nice to Odysseus. Also, the timeline is definitely it's definitely changed quite a bit. Like on the island with Cersei, that should have been, what, a year-long period, and it was like a 5-minute chat, and suddenly she changes her mind. But there were a lot of alterations that I, of course, was not a fan of. The feminism was the #1 issue that I had with it. I was really hoping we were going to see more so, I don't know if I want to use the word evil, but complex females, and instead it's just one angle. They're all victims, sadness, depression, nothing that I expected with the women.
Yep, that was
except for Penelope, I suppose. Penelope was pretty standard.
Yeah. Painfully mid is a really good way to describe the movie. It's really, really funny.
It was big and it was explosive and it was colorful. I liked the way that it was filmed.
It wasn't colorful. It was so dry.
I don't know. I thought like
I watched it on a standard screen. Maybe it looked different on like a bigger screen.
I thought like the reds and the yellows and all of those hues were really good. Also the color of the ocean looked good. But it's not like the most colorful movie. It's not like it was visual vomit levels of like the Suicide Squad where everything is bright and colorful. So
look, I actually I tried to rewatch the Suicide Squad recently, and I made it about halfway through. I really would. That's the one where I actually would like to see David Ayer's version of that movie, where it wasn't cut together like a music video, because it has the bones of a serious movie in there. This just has random upbeat music for no reason.
Yeah.
Pop Culture Junkie, $20 super chat. Thank you. Says the Scream opening was also put to the audience, was to put the audience on edge that anybody could die at any time. It was a very original tension trick. Yes. And it's like that the build in that opening scene as the call goes from friendly and jovial to more serious is amazing. To this day, amazing. I love that. And the thing is I love the first two Scream movies, but I love Scream 4 for a completely different reason, just because I think Scream 4 predicted sociopaths who want to use social media to get famous. And Jill and Emma Roberts was just born to play that character. Shane H. Weiler says, there is a difference in confidence and being a, I'm assuming he meant prick. I know... Hold on.
I know. I is big dumb.
I can't, like, the text is so small on screen here. I need one of those, like, old person, like...
magnifying glasses.
Yes, I do. I don't need a director looking down his nose at me like, you eat it up, but you don't understand it. How trite and plebeian. Thanks for the money. Well, thank you, Shane, for the money. You were talking to the director, but yes. No, you're right about that. But to be honest, like Christopher Nolan also, he's British. What do you expect? Of course he's going to sound
right, and
like
look at how much money all of his movies have made, and I don't think one or two comments is going to kill his career. I think that he feels very confident in the position he now finds himself in because his movies have consistently either dominated the box office when they are in or over the long period of time. So
my other favorite example of this that I always bring up on the show is when Ben Affleck asked Michael Bay why it was easier for or oil drillers to become astronauts rather than astronauts to become oil drillers in Armageddon. And you just told me to shut the fuck up. That's what you say to the actor. You just tell him to shut the fuck up.
Yeah.
All right, let's move on. We've got more stuff to get into today. So, okay. Again, we are going to get into a spoiler discussion about Spider-Man Brand New Day. So, if you have yet to see this movie and you are going to do so in the theaters and you do not want to be spoiled, I give you permission to exit this episode, or perhaps you come back later and you watch after the last segment and hang out with us for the super chats. But I do now give you permission to take off, but I do want to talk about spoilers in the movie. More than anything, now that you have been warned, I want to talk about Jean Grey and how this version of the character is being perceived by the general public. Because what I have found, and I've mentioned it several times during this episode, is that what Spider-Man Brand New Day seems to prove to me is that if a movie is made really, really well all around, certain elements that may not actually work upon second viewing don't actually bother people as much, because it's not about individual aspects of the plot. It's not about inconsistencies within certain characters' personalities. It's all about how the movie made you feel. How did you feel about Jean Grey in this movie?
So I really like Jean Grey as a character in general, and this was quite a different version of her than I think that I expected. I expected her to be obviously on the younger side when we started getting the reports that Sadie Sink was being casted as her. I kind of figured that she was going to be more of a misfit. I didn't expect them to take this angle with her. I personally believed going, into the movie after a lot of time had passed that there was going to be a different, bigger baddie, and that she was going to help Spider-Man at some point. Maybe she was manipulated by a bigger enemy or a bigger villain, and that she was going to maybe come to her senses, 3/4 of the way through the movie, and that they were going to sort of team up.
I thought okay, so here's the thing. From everything I've been told, the actor who plays the head of damage control is really, really good.
He is,
but they didn't give him much to do in this movie. He's there, but he doesn't go. He goes villain, kind of, but not full villain in any meaningful way. He does a little bit at the end when Jean Grey is in the chamber and he's turning up the pressure and all that stuff. It's there, kind of, but compared to other villains of the past, it's not really fleshed out all that well. So you don't really feel like you're given this actual villain that fills in the gap there. The thing is despite she has tons of stuff that is blatantly very, very villainous that needs to be answered for. So
she controls a man, and then he walks into a street, and then he gets hit by a car. I was shocked that Spider-Man, I know that he was having problems with his power. I understand he was having problems with his abilities, but I thought that he was going to save him and be able to stop him, because he did nothing but walk around during that scene.
Doesn't get addressed again. Violates.
It kind of reminds me about how in Tobey's Spider-Man movies, when he's facing the Green Goblin throws one of his goblin grenades, and then he takes it and he whips it back. It's in the third movie when it's actually his son. It's not the Green Goblin that we all know. It's Harry. And then he whips it back. But in No Way Home, the same thing happens to Peter, and our Peter, the MCU Peter, Tom Holland Spider-Man, he doesn't react to it, and that's what kills Aunt May. So it's in that situation, I can't help but think, oh my God, these other Spider-Men, Andrews and Tobys, they would have had that situation handled regardless. They would have thrown themselves in front of the car to break it and to push that man out of the way, but he doesn't. And that leads to this higher level of tension with Jean that I feel they didn't really need to do because they didn't go all the way with it. It's the only real on-screen, assumed death that we actually see, or this like damage that she is truly causing to these people, because otherwise it's basically just threats that she could do something.
Okay, so the other thing that I was talking about, so the Christopher Nolan Batman movies did irreparable damage to how we perceive car chases. If nobody's seen dying, then I guess nobody died. Every time Tumblr went out and destroys half of Gotham and cars flip off bridges, guess no one died, because Alfred comes in, I think in the third movie, goes, "You're lucky nobody," what does he say? It's like, "You're lucky nobody was killed last night," or whatever. Like, fine, whatever. I'm supposed to just buy that nobody died in any of those scenes, right? But you're telling me that nobody died in that tank scene. I don't think that any actual person's buying it. Then there's all sorts of the other stuff. Purple Man controls people or bends people to his will at Marvel, and he's a super evil dude. She violates Peter and MJ by, getting Peter to kiss her, and then whoops, and then throws MJ off the bridge or off the building and stuff like that. She doesn't do just like kind of villainous things. She like enjoys doing the villainous things.
She
and toying with Peter.
intends for something bad to go wrong, and she does not care.
Hulk
and
is never going to be the same.
Right. But that's my issue, is they didn't go all the way. And I wish that they had committed to a bit. Now, I question what their intentions were, like we were talking about a minute ago with the villain, is because it was rumored that Mr. Negative was going to be the big baddie of this, but Jean Grey was going to in some way be a part of this movie. She was just going to be introduced, but they threw that out. Now, in the movie, there are actually these symbols around that we do not have, that are like not addressed, and we don't have confirmation of, but that was assumed to be his symbol, but they cut that pretty close to the end of filming because they were like, this just isn't working. We want to put the focus on Jean Grey.
And they gave her redemption too quickly. And Peter excuses her too quickly after everything that she's done. They're basically falling into the WandaVision category where she's traumatized, therefore she can do horrendous things without any consequences being brought to her by the storytellers in this case.
Yes.
The best thing that they could have done here is that she surrenders herself to because I was laughing because I was like, well, she can't be brought in by damage control because they're the baddies now, but she could turn herself in to prison and basically acknowledge that I'm here. My own benevolent nature is why I'm here. Because I could escape at any point because I want to atone for my sins. And then Professor X comes in and says, you have a chance at redemption. You can either sit here and wallow, or you can come with me and actively seek your redemption, which again gives her a more active role and gets her out of prison. But that's a story we've seen 1,000 times in these types of things, where a character either surrenders themselves or has been brought in and then is released later as a chance of finding their way back to humanity.
Yeah, I wish that they did that with her as well, where, she helps Peter, she keeps Peter alive and going and breathing, and then after that, she does turn herself in. I think that would have been, even though kind of standard, I think is the best way to say it, and sort of expected, I think that it is better than her just like leaving on a bus and saying bye.
The thing is like, this is a complaint people have in wrestling, which is like, you don't need to overcomplicate things. Sometimes the story that people are expecting is exactly the right story to tell because it's about how you tell it anyways. And that would have worked perfectly here in this story because every other element of this movie landed perfectly with people.
Mm-hmm, absolutely. And of course, they wanted to let her off easy because she was a victim, because she was traumatized, she was wronged by the world, which I think was a very unfortunate thing for them to do because they had an opportunity to actually end that movie in a way that really would have enhanced it if you saw her coming to her senses and changing and actively saying, no, I know what I've done. I want to sort of atone for that, and I want to be redeemed, but a longer road of redemption other than 5 minutes of like, yeah, I'm gonna keep him alive, I'm gonna keep Spider-Man alive, and then I'm just gonna leave on the bus, which is it's just so unfortunate. But I don't know if you had seen it, But there was a quote from Amy Pascal saying Destin Daniel Cretton is the reason Jean Grey was included in the movie and why they decided to keep her as like a major focal point of this.
No, what did she say?
So I sent it to you on X, or I can put it in the private chat. Yeah. But basically, she had said that we didn't pick Jean Grey because she was part of the X-Men. We picked Jean Grey because the director came in and said, if you guys want to do a movie that is about the way people feel isolated, even more today than ever, because of our technology and everything else, and not just young people, but everybody, but it has afflicted young people so much. If we can do a movie that is about how reaching out and making a connection to someone is the most important thing you can do, then I understand how to do this movie. And that's why they thought it would be a great idea for the villain to be a teenager. And I don't necessarily disagree. I loved the angle of reaching out and trying to form that connection. I just thought that it was very rushed at the end. You have her going into Peter's mind, seeing Aunt May's statements, and then she decides, you know what, I want to be the better person, which was a good start. I just feel like that ending was strange.
What I liked was in Arrow, when Oliver finally vanquishes Deathstroke to the island, they bring him back in season 5. And at that point, the Mirakuru is out of his system. And he's horrified by all the things that he did while he was under its influence. And Oliver gives him a chance to actively work towards redemption rather than just staying in prison. I mean, they never explain why he's still so jacked, even though he's been living in a prison underground until...
It's okay.
It's fine. It's perfectly fine.
He just squats in the cell and, lifts the bed. It's fine. Don't worry about it.
But that's the point, right? It's like they understood, even in a CW show, that the character needs to feel some remorse. And even though he was captured and turned in, of course, if you think about it, Argus is a bit like Damage Control.
Yes.
I mean, that or... I guess Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. or whatever. But the point is it's the same thing. It's a prison that can hold him. But her turning herself in would have been so much. And I wonder if some of these, they got carried away with the anonymity of the character, because a lot of the truly villainous stuff is before he knows who she is.
Right.
And then it was afterwards, then they have to immediately start walking it back and finding a way to make the character. And that doesn't happen right away. There's still plenty of times where she is Jean Grey and it's Sadie Sink and it's not just the.
Yeah, why doesn't she just mind hop through Damage Control and then to who she wants and then get the information she's looking for? Well, it's because she was actively making the decision to cause as much chaos as possible because she wanted people to regret the decisions that they had made. She wanted the people at Damage Control to sort of feel her wrath.
Yeah. But she also had a particular issue with Peter Parker because she couldn't get into his mind.
Right.
And she was really, really sadistic during those scenes. I don't let me see if I can, I grabbed a bunch of reactions of people who have their critiques of this, but there was one in particular from, where is it here? These were all the
pains of having 50 tabs open and unfortunately needing them all.
From Thorius Unlimited, because this one is a little bit overlooked. It says, there's an overlooked moment in Spider-Man Brand New Day when Peter apologizes to MJ for kissing her while she was mind-controlled by Jean. He thought MJ had been in her right mind and he had the green light, but when he realized she wasn't, he immediately knew that she had been taken advantage of. In other words, Peter understood that this was wrong, which means that the movie understood that Jean's actions were messed up. The fact that Peter felt the need to apologize for something that wasn't even his fault because he was taken advantage of too, but Jean felt no need to account for that or any of the other bad things that she did, up to and including getting an innocent old man run over by a car and putting countless other people in danger, only for the movie to gloss over all of that stuff like it doesn't matter anyways, says a lot about the character assassination that happens here.
Yeah, I mean, it is true because he does apologize even though he was a victim of this as well.
Also, there's something that people, one of my favorite like nitpicks that people have is like, it's like me when I watch Superman pick up my car and throw it across Metropolis only to miss during a battle, and then they're like, I gotta buy a new car now. Like,
we need Avengers insurance if you live in New York. Like, their destruction is crazy.
So violates MJ and Peter's consent, relishes in torturing Peter, kills an old construction worker, throws MJ off a building, which could have seriously hurt her, traumatizes the Hulk for life. That's not morally gray. That's a villain.
Yeah.
Sean Chandler, I like Sean Chandler's takes a lot. He's very measured. Says, if you have issues with the morale, somebody said nothing proves the MCU fans have baby brains than the idea that a character can't be a hero after a villain origin. And he says, that's not him that said that. That's this person he's responding to. He says, if you have issues with the morality of Sadie Sink's character in the movie ethics, it's because you have a baby brain. Obviously, because babies and children are well known for debating morals and ethics. These responses are getting more condescending while making less and less sense.
Yeah.
This one from Mahler, which I really like, because this person says, okay, but real talk. This is in relation to the guy getting hit by the cab.
Yeah.
It says, okay, but real talk. He probably had it coming. She knows your entire life the moment she takes over your body. She saw something. And he says, we have now reached the they had it coming part of the murder hobo mind rape discourse.
Yeah, it just, again, I wish that they had taken it farther. I wish that they had established her as either causing more damage and causing more chaos and being just more evil, even though she is quite unhinged in this. And then you actually know that she is in like the long haul for a redemption. But I had reviewed the movie with Mahler on FNT last week. Our opinions are kind of different. I know that he has a lot of criticisms with the movie. Completely fair. I don't think it's a perfect film, but I still enjoyed the movie as a whole. I thought that it was pretty great just because Peter was great. His journey was spot on. I enjoyed the different tones of the beginning when he is like in this deep depression and you see all of this time passing and him maturing and really seeing how his decision to give up his previous life and his friends happen versus the end where he finally takes a stand and says, yeah, I just can't live this way anymore. And nobody should be forced to live that way anymore. I enjoyed it.
I did too, absolutely.
Yeah, I think Jean Grey was a bit of a misfire.
And again, like I said,
she's such a cool character and she has so much possibility, and obviously they're going to use her a lot going forward. Sadie Sink has a multi-year, multi-film deal, so we're going to see her quite a bit, especially if the rumors are true about after the multiverse saga. It's going to be the mutant saga. We've got our Emma Frost as well,
and like I said, it is proof that what really matters is how what the movie leaves you feeling in a lot of ways, because you can overlook a lot. And I'm one of those people, like, I'm not the nitpicker with stuff when I watch movies. Like, for the most part, it's like people will point out critiques afterwards and they're totally valid. Like they'll point out inconsistencies in the story and I'm like, I didn't notice it, or that didn't bother me. Those things usually don't.
Walking out of the theater, it matters if you enjoyed yourself and you got entertainment value. I walked out of the theater and said, I'm going to rewatch that soon. And I definitely will. A movie doesn't have to be perfect in order to walk out of a theater feeling fulfilled. I think that over the years, us comic book fans and superhero fans have definitely had a rough time. And while I still don't think this movie was perfect, I still think that it was better than a lot of the content we've been getting recently.
110%. I do think that using the song Wolf Like Me proves that this was definitely made for millennials. I was like,
that is true. There was a lot of like modern, I guess we'll say TikTok music in there. Like there was a Bad Bunny song, there was a Tame Impala song, so there was a mixture.
It was fun, and I also think that Zendaya did perfectly fine in the role as well. Like this was the
I loved her 4 minutes of screen time.
Did you see the? I think
she did fine. I obviously do not love her iteration of MJ, even though it's not technically MJ that we know. It's not Mary Jane, but
I like one of the things that I pointed out. I said the movie understood when when to let the humor happen and when it didn't need to happen. And I think that was the key, is like when he's bantering with Frank, perfect. When he's, being a little bit cocky when he's playing Spider-Man, that's perfect. But there's the point when him and MJ have their discussion on Frank's, I guess it's like he's living in a warehouse that's apparently
his ship. It's like a submarine, it reminds me of.
Decommissioned ship, where they have their discussion and she walks away, and I was like, they're gonna do the thing where she's like, I need a ride back, and they do it, but they don't make it a joke. They actually make it a point to leave the camera on Peter and show him kind of longing for her, and that proves that it's not necessarily that humor is a bad thing. It's knowing when and where it needs to go that matters.
Sometimes you need to actually let the dialogue and the scene sort of hang, and I think that they did that really well. I honestly really wish that the conversation on the ship between Frank and Peter was longer, because I thought that their dynamic was really good in this movie. I thought that he was a good addition. But when he's saying, kid, this isn't a lifestyle choice. I don't have a choice.
Thank you. Thank you guys so much. Hold on. They did include pictures of Frank's family in there, calling back to the series. It is funny because tonally it's so different from the Marvel Netflix.
It is.
At the time. I still put Frank and Daredevil and Matt at the grave as one of the greatest things.
I wish that we had gotten Daredevil in this, though.
Yeah.
He would have been a cool addition. What's he gonna do? Nothing. That's the problem.
No, see, he can help Peter understand how to control his powers when,
True.
I thought they were they could go for him for that discussion, but they used up their. I guess it just proves that John Bernthal is a more savvy behind the scenes guy to end up in this movie.
He's able to slip into these roles and slip into these movies. He's probably like, I'll take a million less than the next guy in line.
I do laugh at the thing I pointed out when I did the review for Punisher: One Last Kill. I was like, who's giving Frank his fade? He's on the run. Who's giving Frank his really good Jersey Shore fade with his flat top hair? Because his hair is styled.
Right.
I'm he's living on a ship. Who's doing that? Is he doing that himself? He must be doing that.
He's just learned how to do it himself.
All right, super chats, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much, guys. So from Shane H. Wilder, he says, Happy Taco Tuesday, Brett and Vera. Thanks to everyone who showed up on the show last night. And Brett, it's okay to be wrong about androids. Yes, Shane H. Wilder was on a podcast last night, and I kind of I crashed the party, and I was listening to them, first of all, talk about how X is a cesspool, which that's true. And they were under this crazy notion that iPhones were better than Androids, which is, of course, absurd. Which is why...
Do androids dream of electric sheep?
Androids don't have a lame logo of an apple. That's what they don't have. They have the cool robot logo, which is way cooler. But I did put a poll up today asking people, you can only pick one, iPhone or Android. And as of right now, Android is winning. Smart audience today, ladies and gentlemen. That's fine. Do you run on a Mac system, or are you running on a PC? You gotta be running on a PC.
Yeah, I'm on a PC.
Okay. Katie says, on Saturday, I had my first meeting with a Catholic priest. It was amazing. Shout out to Shane H. Wilder for answering all my Catholic questions. Yes, Shane is the one you want to go to if you want to ask questions about Catholicism. Thank you. Corey Anderson says, Vera, what are your thoughts on the planned PlayStation boycott? Will you be participating? Is 1 week long enough?
So I think that it's tough, right? Because I completely understand why people are doing it. People are very, very upset with the state of PlayStation and their decision to kill off physical media. I don't necessarily think a week boycott is going to change their minds at all. This is a decision that they have been making for years and that they've had in the pipeline for years. But I do think that it's worth a shot. And obviously, if you are upset, it is good to take to social media and leave dislikes and comments and participate in the week-long boycott.
All right. Pop Culture Junkie. Wait, make sure. No, I almost missed one there. Chainsaw Arm. Glad I could check back on that one. Chainsaw Arm says, "Is Christopher Nolan one of the greatest storytellers of all time? How many of his movie scripts did he write?" That depends. Are you talking about like screenplay or written by? So he written Oppenheimer, which was obviously based on a book, written for the screen by. The Odyssey, written for the screen by. He wrote Tenet. He wrote Dunkirk. He wrote Interstellar. He did the story for Man of Steel. He did the screenplay for The Dark Knight Rises. I believe his brother did the rest of it, right? Jonathan Nolan, who of course made Person of Interest. So reset the counter and acknowledge that is still the best thing any of the Nolan bros have done. And they're the actual Nolan bros, not the Nolan bros, the fans, but the Nolan bros, the brothers. It's a different thing.
Yeah.
Inception was he wrote Inception. He did the screenplay for The Dark Knight. He did the screenplay for The Prestige. He did the screenplay for Batman Begins, which is my favorite of the Batman trilogy. He did the screenplay for Memento. So there you have it. He is the writer or the screenplay or the screenwriter for the majority of the stuff that he is.
Yeah,
done.
he's generally good at what he does, but is he like one of the greatest storytellers of all time? No, he's not.
All right. Pop Culture Junkie says, "I really like Spider-Man because there wasn't a MacGuffin, usually the result of lazy writing plastered all over a monstrous hole in the plot." Again, like, I'm going to be completely honest, MacGuffins don't even usually bother me. Like,
Yeah.
I would hate a lot of Mission Impossible movies if MacGuffins bothered
I think it
me.
depends on how serious the tone of the movie is. Because if it's more of like a lighthearted, fun movie, then I don't really care. But if it's supposed to be something for like intellectuals, and this is very serious stuff that we're talking about here, well, then obviously I think that I would feel different.
All right. My favorite here is that they list Christopher Nolan's height as 5'11" and 1/4. How the hell did he get, like, is he just like, I'll give him props. He's not one of those 5'11" bros who rounds up to 6 feet. So good
Yeah.
for him, I guess.
I guess.
Yeah. See, I round down. I round down by like the doctor says I'm 5'7". I say 5'5". That's
Wow,
what
humble brag over
no,
here.
because I never knew. All my licenses says 5'5" because I guess I had my height checked at one point and it was 5'5", and I literally never checked again until I had to go to the doctor a couple years ago. Never happened. Pop Culture Junkie says, no, I'm sorry. Brian Bledsoe says Mind Freeze. It says Mind Freeze, The Void, Battle of New York, etc. Would love a Disney Plus show on the people of New York living through all of these MCU events.
Yeah, it's just like people walking down the street and like hanging out and going to get a cup of coffee, and then rolling down the street is a tractor trailer that the Hulk just threw at this villain. Like, yeah, it would be hilarious. And then you get like the news interviews with them. You could probably do a mini series like that with like 20-minute episodes based on the different battles that we've seen in the MCU.
This existed. There was a show in 2016 called Powerless, which was about like superhero insurance company. And that, oddly enough, was with Vanessa Hudgens.
Yeah, we were just talking about her a little while ago.
Yep. Again, I think I think that concept right there is what I call a streaming idea. That's a product
like
where
20-minute episode, and then you have like 6 episodes of it, and it's not supposed to be taken very seriously, and it's low budget because obviously you wouldn't be using any of the main actors that we know. It would just be normie people walking down the street.
Yep, and I think those ideas worked better like in the early days of streaming when people were a little bit less jaded. Now I think people are like, Actually, this show had Alan Tudyk, so maybe I should watch it.
Ooh, great actor.
Yep. All right. Shane H. Wilder says, "Here's for the crisis party. If we don't get one, Vera will think we don't like her." No.
Come on, guys.
We got one. So she knows you she knows you like her. Brian, but if you really want to like her, you should get her a second crisis party, even though we've only got a couple minutes left. Brian Bledsoe says they love to make the X-Men an allegory for race relations, so overlooking violence as a response to oppression fits their ideology. Well, I mean, that's been debunked several times. At least the mutants as an allegory for oppressed groups has been debunked many times.
Yeah.
Mike says Brett equals wrong. iPhone supremacy for the win. I haven't seen FTW in so long, so thank you for bringing that back. We need that. We need more of that. But as for the iPhone part, you're allowed to be wrong. It's fine.
Yeah, I mean, I have an iPhone, but I it's not like I like it, so it is what it is.
It is what it is. Brian Bledsoe says, speaking of Armageddon, I saw that almost 20 times in theaters. Vera, have you ever watched a movie more than once in theaters?
In theaters. Not that I can think of off the top of my head. Generally, I just watch something once in theaters, and if I really like it, I will buy the, physical release, or I will just watch it digital. Like, I really enjoyed Night of the Seven Kingdoms. I bought the DVD so that I could, I bought the physical so that I could actually watch it with all of the extra little odds and ends. But seeing a movie in theater more than once, no, I generally don't.
I think I saw Mortal Kombat more than once in the theaters. So when I was very young, by very young, I mean like, what year did Home Alone 3 come out? Somebody's gonna need to look that up.
Home Alone 3 was 97.
Okay, so I would have been 11 years old. So when Home Alone 3 came out, and it went to the cheap theaters. We had a place called the Cinema Cafe in my town, and basically it was like what an Alamo Draft House is now, which is like you could order food and they would bring it to you. Funnily enough, at that time, it was a different business model. It was older movies that weren't necessarily brand new. And over Christmas break that year, so I'd have been like 11 or 12. I don't remember exactly whether it came out in the winter or the summer or whatever it was. I went and saw that movie like 3 times at the Cinema Cafe because the tickets cost like nothing, and then you got the pizza. And I had money from getting gifts for Christmas. So I went and saw that movie like 3 times, and I still have like no memories of it whatsoever because it was that long ago. That was like Scarlett Johansson's like first movie.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. I think that maybe like I had seen How to Train Your Dragon in theaters twice. That came out in 2011. I think that I technically saw that twice, but like I don't actively as an adult go to see movies multiple times in theaters.
I don't really rewatch a lot of movies after they come on streaming afterwards.
See, I'm the complete opposite. I will rewatch something once or twice if I thoroughly enjoyed it.
What's one that you've rewatched recently?
I don't know what I've like recently done it with. I know that I'm going to do it for Spider-Man.
Yeah.
I did it for like Ghostbusters. I've done it for all of the newer Ghostbuster movies. Even though the last one maybe wasn't as good.
But you liked Afterlife, but you thought less of. Yeah. I was the same way. I was like, I didn't hate Frozen
loved
Empire.
Afterlife. I thought Afterlife was really, really good. Frozen Empire was still a fun movie. So it still was like, okay, I want to rewatch it, but
yeah, that was I liked Afterlife a lot. Like I still remember when we got out of the theater, and I was like, they're gonna need to give McKenna Grace back surgery for carrying that whole movie on her back. But like that was just my take on the matter. I was like, Paul Rudd is it feels like the Paul Rudd role would just go to whoever the new Paul Rudd is. Like they'll just replace him with some new, safe actor. It'd have been Pedro Pascal.
Yeah.
If it had been made a couple of years later, it'd have been Pedro Pascal.
It would have been. Another movie that didn't go, well, it had a very limited release, which of course, we never get. It's always in like California, but I watched Frankenstein a bunch of times because I really, really loved it.
Oddly enough, the only movie that I've rewatched multiple times since seeing it in theaters, at least since I've had this job, is Equalizer 3.
You have said this, I think, like every stream we've been on together. Equalizer 3 always comes up.
It's not even that great of a movie. I just kind of like that it's set in Italy and it just all takes place
what matters.
In one place.
You thought it was fun. I also watched Weapons in theaters and then at home.
Never mind. I did rewatch. Okay, so I haven't rewatched a few. I did rewatch F1 and I did rewatch Gran Turismo. I rewatched both of those. There's probably a couple of others, but those are the ones that I but
you know what? I'm not going to rewatch The Marvels, Brent.
It's all my fault.
Also, Joker too. Whew, that one that was terrible. I was so hyped to see that, and then we went, and everything was not merry and jolly.
You got screwed with the movies you had to go see with us.
Yeah.
Every time Vera's coming to town.
What's the next one I'm reviewing with you?
Like, Vera gives us like 2 dates. She can come, and I'm like, when does the Marvels come out? We'll make her come on that date.
And the other one that I was supposed to see was Borderlands, which was also god-awful. At least I got out of that one.
Yep. All right. I think we got a couple more super chats here right before we go. Yes, one more from Manic Attack says, I used to think FTW was fuck the world, so I was always confused when people were like Burger King FTW or whatever. And one more from Shane H. Wilder who says, BRB, need to see how tall I am to the 1/4 inch. Yes, you need to double check for yourself there.
To be a proper Nolan bro, you have to do that.
What's he gonna do? Like when all the, because aren't there like only a couple of IMAX cameras like the technology is like
there's like 5 of them that are actively used or something like that.
And they're like, and they can't recreate it.
And he burnt out like 2 of them. He like killed 2 of them.
And the people who created it died and like didn't leave it. It's like a National Treasure movie. It's like they're gonna have to do a Nicolas Cage National Treasure movie where he has to track down the original instructions on how to make IMAX cameras.
The hunt for the IMAX blueprints. Yeah.
I would watch that. All right. Guys, before we go, would you hit the like button on this episode, please? And subscribe to the channel if you're new here and you've not subscribed here yet already. And you should also go and follow and subscribe to all of Vera's channels. So you should let us know where we can find you.
Yeah, you can find me on YouTube. Vara Dark, Dark Titan Media is my main channel. I live stream video games Tuesdays, Thursdays, Saturdays, Sundays, 7 p.m. Eastern. Monday evenings at 9 p.m. Eastern is FML with Ryan Kinnell. Wednesday nights is the Vera and Virtue Show with Wicked Virtue at 7 p.m. Eastern. I upload 2 to 3 videos a day talking about the gaming industry, entertainment, and my second channel is Vara Dark Reviews, where I upload, it's pretty self-explanatory, my video game reviews. I'm going to be doing collection videos soon.
Cool. All right, we got some Rumble rants here. I'm so sorry, guys. I missed these from Broody Gambit. He says, did you not think Kenneth Branagh was scary as Dr. Arliss Lovelace in Wild Wild West? I have not seen that movie in a very long time, but I'm also... I'll rewatch it and I'll let you know if maybe he was scarier when he was younger. Okay, he's just not that scary. I'm sorry, but like, you know what it is? It's because every time they put him on screen, they give him like really scary music. I'm like, just because the music is scary doesn't make him scary. Broody Gambit also says, I think the tabletop role-playing game for Tomb Raider did come out. I've got the PDF of the campaign in rulebook. It does lean into reboot style. I don't remember them returning Lara's collection though.
So I believe that they did come out with like a watered down physical edition, but it was, or excuse me, digital edition, but they canceled the physical edition. They canceled the full release. And then I don't know exactly what the story is, but there were like rumors that they had this long timeline that they just ended up scrapping.
Okay. Broody Gambit also says, MCU is modeled after the Ultimates, which was an alternate universe version of the Avengers. In those original comics, Nick Fury was already black. Broody Gambit says, I've got game night with the boys between Gotham Knights and Jump Space or Tiny Tina's World Wonderlands. What should we play?
What was the first option?
The first option was Gotham Knights. I
mean, I guess Gotham Knights, but I I'm personally not the biggest fan of Gotham Knights compared to the rest of the, the Arkhamverse, the other games that are there. But Tiny Tina's Wonderland wasn't a game for me. If you give it a go, I hope you have a better experience with it.
Perfect. Broody Gambit also says, I'm only mildly embarrassed by this, but I saw X3 3 times on opening day, midnight release, after school, and then after graduation that night. Last hurrah with my fellow classmates. That's a lot, man.
That is, yeah. But hey, at least you enjoyed yourself.
Exactly. All right, guys. If you want to follow me, I am on Instagram and on X at Brett Dastovic on both of those platforms. PCC is live 5 days a week, Monday through Friday, 3 p.m. Eastern, which is, of course, noon Pacific. We're on Amazon Music, Apple Podcasts, Pandora, and Spotify if you would like to listen rather than just watch the show. You can also rate and review on Apple Podcasts and on Spotify, which is a great way to help us out. So thank you guys so much for that. If you want to follow us on social media, we are on Twix at popculture_show, Facebook at Pop Culture Crisis, Instagram at Pop Culture Crisis Pod. One more before we go from Brian Bledsoe says he saw F1 7 times in IMAX. Are you made of money, my friend?
That's insane. But hey, if that's really what you want to spend your money on, I mean, who am I to judge? I'm the one that spends $600 on a Lego set, so.
There you go. Ladies and gentlemen, with that being said, we will be back with another episode tomorrow. We will see you then. Later, everybody.